All right. So, welcome to episode 2 of the Powerhouse Life podcast. And I'm so excited for this morning. I've got two fantastic friends of mine, business partners, and I think that they have such a great story as moms, as business owners, as successful women. We all know that we live in this world where, right now it's easier than it was maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago, where we could be the mom, we could be, the lady that has that sales career. And I feel that these women have done such a great job of marrying the two, right? Obviously, it's not been without struggle, without sacrifice, but I want you guys to hear from these women, just hear their story. There's so much that is relatable that I feel like is going to be encouraging, uplifting, and also can, make you better if you're in sales as well. So I want you guys to take us back. Let me go to Asia Hinnant first. So I've got Asia Hinnant and Kailyn Brittian this morning. So just kind of take us back. Tell us your background, kind of, where are you from? What have you done previously as a career? All of the things.
Yeah, so I come from restaurant industry. I also come from property management. So I worked at Texas Roadhouse, which is where I met Laura, years ago, which kind of brought us into the business. But then I worked the last 7 years before I started the career now in property management. And so I did that for quite a while here in Fayetteville, where I'm from. And I just, kind of was ready for a change. I was outgrowing where I was at. I kind of felt like it was a stepping stone. I wanted to do more with my life. I didn't know what that was. But I wanted to own my own schedule and my own life. And I wasn't having that availability, definitely not in the restaurant industry. But property management can be pretty demanding too, whenever you're, managing several properties, several employees, that work doesn't stop.
Yeah. I mean, I hear that all the time that, especially with corporate America, it's, you're giving so much of yourself that it's hard to balance anything. But, people don't know you. Tell us something fun about you. Like, it doesn't have to be crazy, but tell us something that will make us giggle about Asia.
Something fun about me. My maiden name is Beavers. I think. I mean, as far as like fun characteristics, I feel like, I'm fun. But no, my last name, is Beavers, and I really feel like that's funny. That's kind of how I walk in my local Walmart and I might hear someone shout Beavers, from the other side. So from high school. So I always get a good giggle at that. It's not a very common last name.
It is not. Let me introduce Kailyn Brittian. Kailyn, tell us about you. What's your background? Kind of, before you got into sales, what were you doing?
Yeah. So before I started in insurance, I was an RN. I was an RN for about 7 years. And it worked when I had my son. I was a lot younger. I was a very young mom. And so, my priorities back then were to more be able to take care of my son and provide for him. And so I missed a lot, when he was growing up. So fast forward to my nursing career, I had my daughter, and I was on maternity leave, just dreading going back, like racking my brain in every way on how I was going to deal with a 3-month-old and working 4 a.m. shifts and 12-hour shifts. And if anybody knows anything about nursing, it is your career first and motherhood second. And so, the flexibility if my daughter got sick or my kids got sick wasn't there. And I just wanted something different. I wanted flexibility. I wanted to be more mom and enjoy those moments that I missed with my son, with my daughter, without taking a pay cut. As a nurse, I made really good money, but, it took years of college. It took years of establishing myself as a nurse to get the pay that I was getting. So I definitely needed something that was going to be flexible.
You know what? I just realized, I mean, obviously, all three of us, we have a background from Texas Roadhouse, bartending, serving, and all of that. But we were all not just single moms at one point, right? We've all been a single mom. We were all young mothers. I just remembered that. I just realized that. Asia, how old were you when you had your daughter?
I was 21. I just turned 21. It was a couple of weeks after my 21st birthday. Yep.
21. Kailyn, how old were you?
I was 17.
17, and I was 18. So you have, you have a woman that 18 having a child, 21 having a child, 17 having a child. There's probably a lot that, we had to grow up a little bit faster sometimes, take on more responsibility. And it's probably helped us, to be honest, as to why we've done so well in our chosen sales field. So, Kailyn, let me stay with you for a second. Think back to kind of that time, when you were having your son, you were in the trench of being this young single mom. Maybe there's a lesson that you learned that, maybe potentially developed you or helped you where you're at now.
Yeah, definitely. There were a lot of learning experiences back then. I was still a child myself. Wasn't in the best relationship. So yeah, me and my son grew up together. And in a way, I feel like some of the things that I have had to go through have helped me be the leader that I am with my team, the compassion that I have, the relationships that I've formed with them. So, as a single mom, it was fight or flight, right? You're always in a mode of surviving. And so definitely helped in my trajectory with the business for sure.
Fight or flight. I think you hit the nail on the head. Having empathy and compassion and the need to build relationship mixed with the fight or flight mentality, I think is huge for success. Seriously. So Asia, you as well, 21, definitely probably some struggle there. What is something that maybe you learned back in that time as a young mom, single mom, that has helped you kind of where you're at now?
Yeah, so I always worked like even in high school. So, that I was, kind of used to trying to provide for my needs. But being 21, 20 into 21, and then now having a child to provide for, it wasn't 17, because I know that's definitely another challenge in itself. But to me, where I was at, I wasn't, really serious about life at that point. I was having fun. I was going and doing whatever. Was I working? Yes. I wasn't saving. I wasn't doing things that an adult mother should do, And so, when I had my daughter, it was a big slap in the face. It was reality. It was like, hey, this is a child that you now have to provide for. Then I turned into a single mother as well. And it was a challenge. I mean, I went to hair school all day. I worked at Texas Roadhouse all night. And then, you have your mom guilt of being a single mom is a struggle. A lot of people, they see that, but I don't think they understand it. I didn't get government assistance. I didn't do things like that. I was too proud to do things like that. And not saying that there's a right or wrong to that. However, it just isn't what I wanted to do. And so to go out and struggle, to have to live with my parents, again, with my kid, to have a bedroom for my kid in my parents' house. I mean, that was a struggle to be so young and to feel like, that I really wasn't where I was supposed to do or providing for my daughter the way that I could have, even though I was putting all the effort. I was doing the right things, right? And trying to do the right motions, but it takes time, and it's a struggle to get where you need to go.
It takes time. That's kind of really when I look back at, my time as a single mom. I was 22 until I was, I think, 27. I was a single mom. And the times, the struggle is so real sometimes that it feels like it lasts forever. But when you come out of that, it's like you're refined like gold almost, you're chiseled. That time in the fire kind of chisels you. We kind of talked about earlier, what sparked a need for a change in career. Kailyn, you said it was, being the mom first versus the worker first, and that you were looking for that shift in, your work-life balance type of thing. Asia, you said that yours was, maybe you were operating a little bit under your potential, that, you were giving so much of yourself, but you weren't really rising to the level that you wanted to rise to. I was the same way. I was working at Chick-fil-A, and I knew I was operating under my potential, making $13 an hour, $1,700 a month. I was on food stamps. I'll tell you,
Right.
that is that fight or flight, that we got to survive. But not only do we want to survive, we want to thrive. And luckily we've had the platform and the opportunity to be able to do that. right time, right avenue, right platform, and then a little bit of grit, you know? So let's talk about being a woman in sales. Like in itself, you know, women do well in everything in the home, they do well in the workforce, but women in sales, talk about it a little bit, you know, be vulnerable with this. What is that like to be a woman in sales, not only in sales, but in the insurance industry? And I'll go to Asia first.
Okay. So I feel like we're kind of like an underdog, right? And I feel like that's very overlooked. A lot of people don't think, that sales is male driven, but it is. I mean, you go to a car dealership, how many sales do you see, sales women do you see there? Rent a center, just anywhere in general, when you go, it's a male driven industry. So they generally dominate our industry. And so I'm not a competitive person, but that does drive me, right? To know that, I can go and I can, be the single mom. I can do these things. I can do everything and still function. But being, in the sales industry as a woman, I feel like in some ways, it's a little easier, right? And I say that it's definitely not an easy job, but when I'm at the door, I feel like our phone presence, women generally get a better outcome over the phone. And then when I walk up to a door, an older woman is going to let me in the door before she lets, a gentleman for the most part. They're going to feel a little more comfortable. We're not as intimidating, I guess would be the word of that. However, there's a flip side to that. So also, I feel like we're not always looked at as maybe what would the word be?
Serious?
Like, what is it?
Serious?
Well, yeah, that, or, maybe you would listen to what someone else says, but maybe, second guess what I'm telling you when I'm trying to be your benefit specialist or, whatever it might be. So I feel like really having to sell ourselves is what we have to do a little more so than what a man has to do. Yes, I might be easier to get in the door. Yes, I might be able, to get you on the phone a little bit easier. But when you're sitting there in front of someone, I feel like we have to validate ourselves just a little more. Do we have more of a comfort feeling? Absolutely. Right. When you have your kids are more comforted towards, the mom, but when they come for that solid answer, that respect, that line, it generally comes from the man. Right. And so I kind of feel like that is where we struggle. Yeah. We're softer, we're more comfortable. It's a little easier in the first contact, but whenever it comes down to really selling yourself and selling your product, I feel like we have to be a little more adamant, a little more stronger in that way.
I got a really good story for that. I remember I was doing a presentation with super nice guy, bigger dude. He was like 6'4". I think he was a farmer. And, we were going over life insurance benefits for him. And he just kept over talking me. Like he liked me, he trusted me, but he kept over talking. So I literally had to stand up so that my eye level was above his eye level. So he would actually like take me serious and take control of the conversation. And if it was a dude or a guy, I don't think that would have happened. Maybe not. But, I feel like that, is just like a great example of that. Kailyn, let me go to you. As a female, as a woman in sales or in insurance, what are some of the things that maybe are pitfalls for us or that make it more difficult for us, whether it's on our own that we give it to ourselves that this is more difficult, or what's your experience?
Yeah, I'll have to kind of piggyback off of what Asia was saying. I feel like men and women both have advantages in this industry. Like she said, it's easier for us to get through the door, but as an authoritative figure, people respect men a little bit more in that role. And so I feel like we have an advantage at the door, but men have an advantage at the close, right? And then we're also a lot more emotional than men are. And I feel like one of the benefits that men might have is just the fact that their mind isn't usually in a million one places, like if they're focusing on one thing, they're focusing on one thing. Whereas for us women, that one thing is going to lead us to 20 other things that we're trying to think about and figure out. So I think that's an advantage that they have over us, that they can compartmentalize a lot better than we can, and they can also take the emotion out of it,
Yes, that is huge. Those are two things. It's compartmentalizing and emotions. Emotions are great. God gave us emotions to feel. but dudes, it's like, I can compartmentalize when I need to go to work. Like that's what their mind works. And so we have to overcome that on a daily basis, but it also makes us who we are. And why we are so special is that we can take on, taking the kids to soccer practice and then being done over here to make dinner all the time. Or, obviously we ask for help. My husband helps. I know that Ryan helps you, Kailyn, when it comes to making dinner or taking the kids to and fro. But, we don't compartmentalize that stuff. We're always thinking about that. Is always on our plate. It's never off of our plates. And I think that's our double-edged sword. It makes us so special, but then also can be our downfall to actually get things done that we need to get done. I think that's really, really big. Okay, let's talk a little bit about balancing mom life, wife life, sports. I've got a kid in sports. I know that y'all do too. And then performing, like performance. We all have that competitive edge where, we want to perform in our career, perform as leaders, and perform as mom, perform as wife. And then we'll kind of dive into, the meat of, you guys have both produced $1 million businesses. That is huge. And we'll kind of, we'll tackle that once we tackle how we balance everything. So let me start with Kailyn. How do you do that? How do we balance mom life, sports mom life, business mom life, wife life, all of the things? Do you have a strategy?
To be completely honest, I'm still learning one, learning how to time block my days and my time. But I think the biggest realization for me is that there is no beautiful balance. There's no perfect balance. There's so many different parts of our life that require so much of us. And sometimes, work might require a little bit more. So mom and wife duties kind of, don't necessarily become non-existent. They're just, your focus is on work. And then there's sometimes, maybe your kid's sick and you have to be more mom, but I think coming to the realization that there's no such thing as a perfect balance, and being okay with that and giving myself grace during the ups and downs that life throws at us, right? Because I think it's you that says that even in the unpredictability of life, it's still predictable. What's unpredictable is us, right? And so realizing that and trying to find the joy in whatever season I'm in, whether it's work, whether it's mom, whether it's wife, and then giving myself grace to not have that guilt, I think is huge.
No, seriously. I think Ashley says it too, is putting your whole self into your whole life. And that's something that I've had to come to terms with is, what that means to put your whole self into your whole life is that when you're on mom mode, you got to be on mom mode. When you're on business mode, you got to be on business mode. And it's okay to be on business mode when you're on business mode. And it's okay to be on mom mode when you need to be at mom mode, right? And you hit the nail on the head, is giving ourselves grace. I struggle with perfectionism. I like everything to be perfect. And then if I miss the mark, I get mad at myself. And it's something that I'm dealing with, working through. And that's why it's so crucial, like, to give yourself grace, but just be consistent in what you're doing. And you're not always going to make all the right decisions. You might miss something. You might miss a work call, or you might miss a soccer game. But when you give yourself grace, that's what keeps you going, is the grace aspect, putting your whole self into your whole life and then giving yourself that little bit of grace. So Asia, what about you? How do you balance it?
I think, like she said, there's not a balance. And I think that I held myself back a lot by trying to find a balance. So if I had to give somebody one tip, I would say there is not a balance, but like Kailyn said, time blocking. So it's not a balance. It's literally, what do you have to do executing that plan and making it happen? You have to write it down. You have to schedule it, because you're going to be tired. You're going to be cranky. There's going to be things that happen that you're not expected, to happen. I mean, my daughter plays travel softball. My son did travel wrestling. Now he's doing travel baseball. Baseball and softball run at the same time. And it's not fair for me to not allow my son, which is the younger one, to do the things that my daughter did because I'm too busy. Right. That was the whole purpose of me wanting to own my career, own my business. And especially, I've been a single mom to a married mom to a single mom to a married mom back to a single mom. Right. So being separated to the same person twice, it's been a transition. So I got used to having help, with practices and things like that. Now I don't have that. So I have a support system. I have people, my parents pick up my kids. It takes a village, right? I used to be so weird about asking people for help, right? Asking people for help. And I really had to eat that, to know that what I had to do to be successful in my business and what do I have to do to be, what I would consider a successful parent is I have to lean on people that are willing to help me. So my parents pick my kids up, right? Or if they can't, they go to after school care, right? So having that support system makes it different. But if you don't have a support system, you have to find one. You have to create one, like you do, Laura, with the nanny. Kailyn does daycare, so there's just, you have to find it and you have to create it. There's never going to be the balance. And I caught myself getting stuck in being upset that there wasn't a balance, that I wanted to give my kids 50-50 of what my business was every day. And it's unrealistic. It's just not going to happen. And so now that I've accepted that, and, there's things I've done to hinder my business because I didn't plan right. I've accepted it. There's nothing I can do about it now. Like you said, give grace. And then what can I just do different to learn? It's the journey. And I had a gentleman tell me, one of the clients I sat with, he was like, yeah, we were talking about my kids and how we're busy and everything like that. And he says, it's such a good feeling to know that you're raising, like once your kids are adults and they turn into good people, it makes you feel so good. It makes you feel like you've done a good job. I was like, you're right. And he said, but you know what makes you feel better is the process. And I literally teared up when he said that, because we're so busy being moms and being business women and leaders. And it's like, why am I not happy with the process? So that's been something that I feel like I've focused on that has made a world of difference. It's the process. It's going to be tough. I'm going to be tired. But there's going to be one day that I'm not going to be able to do this. So I'm not going to have to balance both. Right. And so I feel like, yeah, I'm just learning to enjoy the process. And I feel like that is, helping me to be more successful.
Like reveling in the process, and like this morning I had to stop myself from being, thinking about all the things that I need to accomplish and not being in the moment and, trying to check off mentally in my to-do list. And I just said, what am I doing? Let me just enjoy the fact that I'm drinking my coffee. I've got a day that I get to be productive. Let me enjoy my coffee and the sun that's shining. It's basically spring right now. Let me just revel in that moment. That's the process, and I'm not thinking about anything else, or I haven't started this yet, or I haven't finished that task yet, or, this person is doing that. No, it's Friday. I'm enjoying my coffee. This is the process. And I get to go pick up my kid later. I get to go pick up my other kid later, and I get to work. I get to do it all, and it's in these moments of like, well, figuring out what it all, like what that looks like, and I mean, you're just reminding me, this is short. Time is short. So get the best out of it. Yeah. So, okay, let's get into some strategies and some tips. Okay. When it comes to business. So like I said, you're both producing $1 million businesses. Your line of your avenue or your platform is insurance sales, right? But I feel like these tips could be for anybody in any sales or anything. But let's talk about unpacking what it looks like to manage and grow and create and organize a $1 million sales business. Let me go to Kailyn.
It looks messy. It's the best description of it. Rolling with the punches. But no, so again, I think it just goes back to time blocking, making sure that I make myself available for my team, but as to my kids as well, finding that blend.
So did you have a goal? Let me interject real quick. So when we take a look at, $1 million business, one of the main things that you can do is to cast your vision, right? Where do you want to be? And I'm sure that you said, hey, you know what? I'm running for, in our line of work, to hit regional vice president. That's your next promotion, but it's like casting that vision of, I want to hit $1 million. I I want to hit $1 million business. That's like a goal, like a goalpost. So take us back to, how did you create that vision? How did you reverse engineer what that looks like to hit $1 million in production?
Well, I mean, it's really been laid out very easily for us on what we need to do and how we need to structure things. And so it's just a matter of finding the time to be able to hire, to be able to coach, to be able to do the things that I need to do. And then giving myself, like I said before, grace. You know, I'm not going to get it perfect. It's messy. But I feel like I'm not answering your question.
So you talked about time blocking, right? Tell us
Yes.
how you time block, so you can, what do you do in the morning? What do you do during the day? What do you do in the evening that's going to produce the results of $1 million business?
Yeah. So morning, I mean, it's really all about time blocking. Mornings are very, very hectic. We got kids going to schools, 3 kids now to 3 different schools because my stepson is now living with us. And so, mornings look a little bit hectic, but giving myself time to organize my day, organize who I need to coach, who I need to talk to, making sure that I'm available during those times to coach my team before they hit the field. And then I really do try and, as far as, my own personal production, my own personal goals, I have to include those in there too. And so from a certain point of the day, I'm in the field. If it's not work related, I don't answer it. I learned that from you. But the more promotions you hit, the bigger the team that you grow, the more fires come up, the more new learning curves, everything, And so I think one of the biggest tips to producing $1 million team is being able to go with that flow and not letting it derail you, because so many times over the past 4 years, it has derailed me.
Yeah, just being the leader that it takes with like personal development first. It's like putting the oxygen mask on you before you can help any of the sales reps or help any of your leaders. It's, am I the person that can take on the responsibility of these fires, of these personalities, of these, objections with clients, right? Can I handle that myself first? And then, because you're the foundation, right, of any $1 million business, the leader is the foundation that's going to see it through to what everyone else does. I think that's a really great tip. I'll come back to you for some more tips here in a second. Let me go to Asia. Same thing, unpack, what it looks like to grow and to develop, or a strategy of creating $1 million business. Because no matter if you're in insurance, no matter what sales you're in, hitting $1 million milestone is huge. That's huge. So what does that look like for you?
So I love when Kailyn said it's messy, because it made me think of, that song, I don't know who sings it, but what a beautiful mess I'm in. I'm spending all my time with you, but there's nothing else I'd rather do. That is like a good definition of our business. It is messy, right? But it's not like, I want to do it. I want to grow. And so hitting $1 million in production was big, but I want to say that I didn't do that alone. That was me and my team. So I have to learn how to be a different version of me through, last year or the year before, I think it was like 700,000 and some change, right? $1 million seemed so far off to me, but I know that who I was at my $700,000 of submitted business or net business, is not who I'm at now at $1 million business. And it's not who I'm going to be, at 2 million or whatever it is. And so I feel like understanding that I'm going to have to continue to grow, even though I feel like my plate is full right now, there's going to be even more 6 months from now, even more a year from now. And so instead of stressing about it, instead of worrying about it, what I'm learning to do is just deal with it, right? So I'm just dealing with what I have one day at a time, the best that I can do. But I'm learning that I'm my own worst enemy, right? And so for me, if I have more things to do, I have to get up earlier. If I'm not feeling good, I have to find time to go to the gym, because it generally makes me feel better. When I have frustration build up and I just feel overwhelmed, it's okay to put it down, right? To take a breath, to take a breather. It's okay. And I used to feel guilty for doing those things. But now that I'm learning to balance that, not everyone is going to understand it. I'm never going to make everyone happy, but I'm just being the best me is what's helping me to produce more in my business. I feel like my team, they're starting to learn that. They're starting to respect that, but I'm setting boundaries in certain areas. But there's areas that I lack that I have to be willing to take that criticism and make the change to produce more in the business. So honestly, I feel like, yes, it's not all about you, right? You're dealing with different characters, different people, different situations, but just learning how to not take everything so emotional and so personal, and then literally just do the best I can do. And there's nothing more than I can do than to continue to grow and do the best that I can do. That's it. And so accepting that, like you said, giving the grace, but executing the game plan. I have a game plan to my beautiful mess, right? It's not always going to go the way that I want, but I'm going to deal with it the best that I can.
Execution. I think that really, it's follow through. The reason why people don't make it as far in any business is because they start out with some good things going on, but it's on the back end, the follow through, the execution where they struggle the most. And it's the talent is there, but the work is missing. And so you got to find the folks that are willing to work. So real quick, give us either a tip or a skill set or a character trait that you think is been, the biggest benefit for you, or that you think is necessary for someone to hone in on, to go to the next level in whatever they're doing.
So that's funny you say that, because I was literally thinking about this the other day about, it's kind of like breaking down my characteristics, right? And I've learned that my biggest strengths are my biggest weaknesses, right? But learning how to turn those. So I'm stubborn. It's okay to be stubborn in the right way, right? I can be stubborn about boundaries or setting things, but it's okay to do it the right way. I'm bossy. Well, I don't have to be bossy. I can turn that into leadership capability, right? But I also am very good at, meeting people, like the social aspect of it, making people feel comfortable, right? And so I feel like in this business, with you taking those characteristics of, yes, being stubborn, right? Yes, being, having those leadership abilities, but having that relatable personality to other people that's going to attract them to you, I have to use that in a good way. So I think using those strengths and weaknesses, but figuring out where you're weak in those characteristics and using those for the good and being aware of them will start to generate more towards you. So I would say the comfortability of being with people is something really big in this business when it comes to building, right? We see some of our top writers, that are in the nation, they don't have big teams. Some of them don't, because that's their focus is writing business, but maybe their focus so much for right now in this moment is not being that comfortability of attracting other people, right? So that's what I want to do right now. I want to take my personality that I've been gifted with, or that I was born with, and I want to use that to attract other people to my business to better their life, but to better my business. So I feel like just attraction is a big thing.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot there. There was a lot. Turning your weaknesses, or your weaknesses into strengths, and just tweaking, it's that self-awareness of being able to do that. Same thing with you, Kailyn. What is a good character trait or skill set that maybe you had to develop, that you think is like crucial to just success in general?
Oh, I think one of the biggest learning curves for me, maybe one of the biggest character developments for me, was learning humility. I think that was a big one, and that goes in a lot of different aspects, but letting go of my pride, that is definitely a character trait that needs to be honed. Like, I think that's what Asia is kind of talking about, taking your best qualities that can also be your downfall and honing them so that you can utilize them in the best way. So learning that humility, letting go of my pride. Sometimes it's not even the need to be right. It's the need for people to understand why I feel the way that I feel, so learning that humility, and grace. I mean, I can't say it enough. Be humble. Don't forget where you came from, for sure, because as you move up in these levels, and promote yourself, it gets harder to relate to people that you're bringing on, right? So don't forget where you started. Stay humble, and that would be just my biggest tip for anybody is
Humility.
yes.
Gratitude and humility take you far in anything that you do. Obviously, it sounds cliche to think about, but how easy is it for us to become callous, right? Or to think that, oh, well, I've been there before, I've done this, so I know. And it's humbling ourselves to realize that no matter where we're at, no matter how far we've gone, we can still learn, we can still grow, we can still develop. And I think that mentality, helps you go and not stay complacent or get comfortable with where you're at. Because what if you stayed comfortable with $1 million business? Why not a $2 million business? But if you're not humble enough to know that, hey, I can still learn, there's still avenues for me to grow in, you'll never get to the next level or do the next thing that you're capable of doing. I think that is huge. All right. In closing, let's wrap up. A word of encouragement or a call to action for anyone that's listening to take their next step, to put their big girl or big boy panties on and do whatever they need to do in their business or in their family. I'll say with you, Kailyn.
Yeah, so nothing good comes from being in your comfort zone, staying in your comfort zone. There is a lot of risk, there's a lot of fear in the unknown, but some of the best things come from taking that leap of faith, from going into the unknown. It activates that fight or flight. So, you're going to show up, you're going to show out, under pressure. Most people do. And so just don't let that fear paralyze you. Take that risk, take that step, and put your all into it. If it fails, you still put your all into it. If it succeeds, you put your all into it. It's as simple as that. Just don't be afraid. I was afraid for a very long time. Just don't be afraid.
I love that. Go back to the fight or flight. Always remember the fight or flight mentality. Don't ever forget the fight or flight, because that's what made you successful in the first place. That's a great tip. Let's go to you, Asia. Quick tip, closing words, encouragement, call to action for anybody listening.
I think I would say treat yourself as if you were your own child. So when you're in these moments, in these doubts, in these fears, in these challenges, what would you tell your child to do? Right? So why is it so different that you would give someone else some advice on to push, to grow, to achieve, but when it comes to you, you don't do that? And so as encouragement for myself, or to say to somebody else, I would think if my daughter came to me and she didn't feel that she was capable of doing something, I would not accept that from her, right? I would say this is a learning, point. This is a growing point. So let's figure out, what that is and why you're accepting that. So I feel like we shouldn't accept that from ourselves. So don't accept the fact that you're scared. Don't accept the fact that you don't think you're capable, because you don't know until you do. And a lot of times we're more capable of of things than what we think we are. Right. I know I've limited myself a lot. Did I think I'd be here? Absolutely not. But I did it and I had nothing else to lose. I put it all in and I went. If you fail, there's other options. It's not the end of the world, but just don't limit yourself. Go out and prove to yourself.
I think that's so good. No one can limit you except for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, seriously, there's no limitations on you other than the limitations that you give and put on yourself. I think I need that reminder. I think we all need that reminder here and there. And so, ladies, thank you so much for coming on this morning. It's been a pleasure, and I cannot wait to see everything that you guys accomplish, whether it's, business, whether it's family, whatever it is that you want to do, it's going to be amazing. And I get a front row seat. So y'all have an amazing day. And thanks for coming on. Ciao.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks.